Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to dive into part 2 of the future of work, how to prepare your kids for the future job market. Of note, this episode is the 52nd episode of this podcast. And that's significant because that means I have 1 full year of episodes as of this episode. So something to celebrate. I really appreciate all of you going on this journey with me. We have some really dedicated listeners, and I really appreciate you. I really am just amazed that that I can get on here and talk to people from literally around the world, and they get to hear my thoughts on something, and that they actually stick around to hear my thoughts, and I think that's actually amazing. I feel very blessed, and I thank every single one of you for tuning in, and not just because it means a lot to me, but because there are parents out there who are taking their kids' education very seriously. They see the problems with the current model of education, and they're doing something different, or at least open to the idea of doing something different and building up their own plan, and that's what you should do. Is build your own plan. Don't just listen to me blindly, because I could be wrong, and I'll talk about that today. I'll talk about that in today's episode. But you're building your own plan, and you're using your brain, and that's what we want to model for our kids too. So I think that's very good. But thank you for joining me. It's been 1 year as of this episode. So I really appreciate you guys. And with that, let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about preparing our kids for tomorrow's job market. We're really talking about how to prepare people, your kids, for the future of work. It is a very turbulent time, so everything I say is complete speculation. I can only look to see what's in front of me and go, wow, I see where this is heading. But it's all speculation and it's all opinion. So take it for what it's worth. I am going to do what's best for my children, my family. I expect you to take what I say and think about it, and then make a decision based off what you think is best for you and your family. Because I could be completely wrong. But this is where my mind goes, because I do have younger children and I want to prepare them for that future. And I think the world is changing faster than ever. And I definitely want to take that into account. We can't just do the same old things, because guess what? The world's changing. And if we did things like we did in the 1920s, and we prepared them for a 1920s world back when I was a kid, then I would be underprepared. So now it's 2024, and I want to prepare them for the future of work when they are an adult, not for future of work when I was an adult. So that's going to require something different at the very least. Now, going back to the whole speculation piece. This is part 2. I lay a framework for exactly where I see things going. Okay, like what I see with my own 2 eyes right now and where I think it's going. And then how to prepare your children for it. Really, how I'm preparing my children for it. And I just pass that on in the form of a podcast. It's like having a conversation with me and giving my thoughts. I found myself saying the same things over and over and over to people who wanted to inquire about what I'm doing. So then I just created a podcast so that way I could just say, listen to the podcast. I explain a lot about that and give them a brief overview. And if they want more, they can go to this. But it's all my thoughts and my ideas. I happen to be involved in technology, and I was formerly involved in education, and I do this with my own kids, so I have a vested interest. So, hopefully that gives it a little bit of weight. But again, this is all speculation, and it's really the best I've got. This is the best I've got. And when you're not given too many great options, you do the best thing you know how to do. And that's all you can do. That's the best you can do. So that's really what I'm doing right here, because the future is so ambiguous. If we look off past 1 or 2 years into the future, the world starts to get really fuzzy and hazy. We used to be able to predict decades out with some amount of certainty. We can't do that anymore. We can't even do 5 years. And that window is going to continue to get smaller. Things that look like they are decades away are probably just years away. And to the common person who doesn't pay attention, they don't even know what's going on. And their children are going to be severely underprepared, in my opinion. And that's why I'm creating this episode. So go back and listen to part 1. I give a bunch of different ways that I'm preparing my children, and I'm going to continue that with this episode. So the next point I want to talk about on how I'm preparing my kids for the future of work is I want to foster adaptability. The reason I personally think this is so important is because the future will change faster than it is today. If you haven't, think about when you were a kid. From the years 10 years old to 20 years old, let's say, and then 20 to 30, and 30 to 40 if you're there. Think about the pace of change. We had, when I was a kid, I was born in 1980. So I was 10 years old in 1990 and 20 years old in 2000, right? Makes the math real easy. We had landlines. I remember those rotary, I don't even know what you call them, but the phones that you kind of had to put your finger in, and then to get to dial the number, you had to turn it. Maybe a rotary phone, is that what they're called? I don't even know. I'm going to, butcher this stuff, but the upgrade was you could actually press a button, and that was the new thing. So it was uncommon to see those phones in a household. I remember I had a friend who had one, though, and it had been there forever. And trying to call my parents on that phone was difficult for me. The new thing when I was 10 was not just the buttons, but then they were starting to have these wireless phones. And those lasted for a while, like 10 years, where there's a wireless phone that you could walk around your house. I remember they advertised it in like hertz, like gigahertz, and like all this stuff. It's supposed to be better signal, all this. And that went on for years. And then they came out with cell phones, right? And we had these rotary phones forever. When I started learning how to dial a phone, learned on the little touch button phones, and that was a big deal. And people who had wireless phones walked around their house, and that was an even bigger deal. So that was the future as far as we could see. Then, fast forwarding over the next decade, it was a phone that was wireless everywhere, a cell phone. And now we're in 2000, right? At that point, we have a cell phone. It goes everywhere, and it's becoming available to everyone. Fast forward 10 years, we got an app market. Think about how fast that changed. Smartphones happened, right? And that was 2007, I believe. Within that decade, smartphones happened. Then we got the App Store. But then we got this. Then we got that. And it's just like the pace of change continues to accelerate. Now we're seeing AI. They're integrating AI into all Apple iOS. It's about to be readily available to every single person who uses iOS, at least with a certain phone model or above. It's only going to accelerate from there. As we look off 5 years in the future, we can't even predict this. We didn't predict this would be happening 5 years ago, right? But we did know it existed, and we could see the writing on the wall that one day it will happen. Hopefully that makes sense as far as an example, but the pace of change is going to happen even faster. We're going to have to get used to the next new thing. Maybe that's VR, or maybe it's something that you wear and you just talk to it, like maybe a watch. And that's cell phones now, and you use glasses that you can actually see a screen on, and now we have to get used to that. I don't know. But the pace of change will only accelerate. And I think the limiting factor to change will not be technology itself in the future. It will actually be human adoption to technology, which is always a factor. But, the biggest factor historically has always been the technology. And now it's going to be the adoption of technology. People who adopt it early will be the successful ones. They will be able to get more done and faster than anyone else. The people who don't will be left behind. I really do think this technological revolution is going to create a whole bunch of haves and have-nots. Now, hopefully, the rising tide lifts all boats, which I generally tend to agree with. However, I think the pace of change will be so fast that it will leave a lot of people left behind, and these people will be angry. And rightfully so, they're left behind, right? But this is preventable to a point. And if we can focus on the actions we can control, not the things we can't control, the things we can control, then I think we'll be better prepared. So I try and instill my children with adaptability. Children need to be resilient and ready to pivot through multiple career changes. When we look up into the future, there's a job title, okay, that might not even be in existence by the time they actually reach 18. Things are going to go by the wayside. New things will pop up. Probably going to have multiple different careers, much like I have. My father, I think, had, let me think. He really only had one career. He changed companies. He was in sales, and he's just sold different things. With me, I was in the Army. I don't know if I'd call that my career at the time. It was just a means to get my degree at the time. But, I mean, it was all-consuming at times. So I would call that maybe my first career. My second career was respiratory. I was a respiratory therapist, still am, and I really invested a lot of my time and energy into that for a decade. And I think I was at least moderately successful in what I did. I definitely, if we define it by my own terms, which is what my objective was, I got into the exact role that I wanted to be in faster than I anticipated I even could. And I made very impactful change in my opinion. I know with my goals, when what I set, I was able to accomplish almost all of those goals. And the big goals, I accomplished all of them. That's success to me. So I'll say I was very successful in my own terms. Well, now I'm on to new things. And I use those experiences to transition into something new, right? That's really what I'm talking about, is we're going to create a mindset of adaptability, that we're going to use whatever skills we've learned in the past and apply them to future endeavors. Maybe some call these skills meta skills. Our kids are going to have multiple career changes. Our kids are going to have to adapt to new technology. Our kids are going to have to do things we've never even thought of nor done, because the future is just so unpredictable. We don't even know. Some of the ways we can build adaptability is emphasize that flexible thinking by presenting challenges that require creative solutions. We want little problem solvers, right? Again, this isn't the only thing we need to do, but problem solving and coming up with these creative solutions is becoming adaptable, right? We're creating a plan and then we're going to go execute. Encourage your kids to see failures as learning opportunities, okay? Because with adaptability, you're going to fail yourself into success. That's what it is. When you're adaptable, you're open to a new idea. You're going to try things you've never done. You're going to learn lessons from your failures, and then you're going to eventually catch some traction and get success. It's kind of the phase of my life right now that I'm in. So I'm just looking for different things that, okay, there's a little traction here, a little traction there. Some people call it the spaghetti model or spaghetti method. Throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. That's kind of where I am right now, just seeing what sticks. I've been there for a year or two. And it takes some time, especially as you get older, like you're kind of set in your habits. I don't ever want to lose that resilience, that flexibility. So I continue to reinvent myself. And when I catch traction, I'm going to go full force. And I think we need to model that for our kids. And that's one of the reasons I do it for myself is I am showing them how to transition, what it looks like. I show them my failures. I talk about my failures, and I frame it in a way that's positive, that I'm just learning how to be successful in whatever I'm working on. You can help your kids get this by providing them with different experiences, and just different ways that they can try stuff out, get creative. This past week, I've given one of my kids video editing software so they can create movies. Well, guess what I got today? I got a trailer for a movie that's fantastic. I think it's so cool. And then I also got the movie. I haven't watched the movie yet because I want to watch it as a family, but it is so cool watching them just learn something new. Is it going to be rough around the edges? Yeah, for sure. It's his first movie ever. But is it going to show a glimpse of, what the future could be like when he really hones in his skill? Yeah, absolutely. Is it the direction he should go? Who knows? But he's learning something. He's adapting. He's doing it all on his own. He's motivated himself. And, really it's just a new venture and he's going to get good at it. He's motivated. So this is the adaptability, right? We're going to provide those experiences, the support to be able to change on a dime. And there he goes. Now, if your kid's older, maybe it's internships or volunteer work or exposing them to different challenging environments. Like maybe you take them to a food pantry. And that's a learning environment. Like, oh, wow, I have to interact with people I'm not used to interacting with, right? There's a lot of people with mental health issues on the streets and addiction issues. Some people are just down and out on their luck. Being able to interact with those people and learning how to do that is an ability or an opportunity to adapt, right? To change. And I think that's important. You can also, I'll stop there with that one. Hopefully adaptability is something you're instilling your child with, because if you frame the world as set it and forget it, I've got my career and that's it, I think it's a very short-sighted decision. And I think that's the way they viewed things in the 1950s, 60s, and maybe even 70s. Maybe even 80s, I don't know. But certainly people don't even stay at the same institution for... If you stay 2 years, that's called that's considered okay now. You could still get a letter of reference for most places. 2 years, if it used to be 5 years before that, that's what I was told when I was growing up. 5 years, that's what you want to do to get a good letter of reference. Gosh, I wonder where that's going to be in the future, but... Either way, your kids are going to change careers most likely multiple times. Help them. I always talk about it with my kids. What do you want to? What's the first career you want to do? What's the first thing you want to really start off on? Because I know that when something changes, they're probably going to have to adapt. And maybe they're lucky. Maybe they can just dive into one thing their whole life, just one particular sliver, and that would be awesome if that's what they want to do. but it's unlikely for most of us, in my opinion. And I just want to prepare them for that. And what's the downside? They don't change. Being adaptable is, they don't change careers. Being adaptable is still beneficial. Moving on. To prepare my kids for future work, I also place a heavy emphasis on math. And believe it or not, I think that something I haven't done so much yet is English. And I'll kind of talk you through this. So with math, I think everyone's kind of on board with like math's important, right? But what I do is I focus on understanding the key concepts of math and not just rote memorization. Because in the future, I think everybody's going to be able to come up with an answer pretty easily by just interacting with AI. We can already do that with some reliability. But drawing connections between things is going to come up with new ideas, and understanding of the world is going to require understanding key concepts rather than just memorizing. So one of the ways I am focusing in on understanding the key concepts of math is using practical applications to reinforce their learning. I also, my kids are averse to writing math down a lot of times. Now we do it because I think writing it out helps you logically work through something, and that's where I try and focus in on you need to write it down because I'm getting confused on what you're trying to tell me. They'll often come up with the right answer in their head, but I'm like, walk me through how you got there. And when they get stuck, I try and focus in and say, this is exactly where you went wrong, right here between this step and this step. That's where you messed up. And then they're able to figure it out. So that's where writing is important. But the key concepts are really, really just the big thing that I'm trying to get them to understand. Because I do think math is very important. It's a logic. It's almost like a liberal art to me. I think it's a good exercise of logic. In understanding how the world works, applying it to physics and engineering is going to be, I think, a great thing to be able to do. To expand their possibilities of their future careers and what they want to do. English might not be as apparent to most people. I've never really talked about this on this podcast, but I think clear and concise communication will remain valuable, especially with interactions with AI. The more I'm learning about interacting with AI, because that's one of the things that I do, is I don't know the correct term, train AI, program AI, whatever it might be. You have to be very, very particular in your speech in order to get a result. And I think that is going to be important to get the results you want. Whether this is, right, if you expose them to literature, for example, and when I say English, I mean, I use that term liberally. I want them to be well read. I want them to understand sentence structure. I want them to be able to be very clear in the communication. That's really what I'm talking about. If you were to say, I want you to write a letter to my friend in the style of Mark Twain. It's valuable to know how Mark Twain wrote and his sense of humor and, these types of things. So that way you can help guide the results that you're getting out on the other end after using AI. Pretty soon, it's not just, we're not going to refer to it as an AI, like using AI. It will be just it would be just interacting with others. It's the way we're going to interact with others through technology. You don't say, like when you say you write someone, you're not specifically saying writing through email or like I'm notifying them, like this. You're texting them, you're emailing, you're doing all these things. We're communicating with someone else. It's not like we're focusing on the route itself. I hope that makes sense. AI will be that integrated in everything we do. I don't think you'll have much of a choice. So going back to like saying AI, you interacting with AI, it's really interacting with technology, interacting with all the ways we communicate. I think it's going to be very important to have these skills. Not absolutely necessary, but it'll give my kids an edge, I think. Yeah. I'm doing a lot of prompt engineering right now. And if you're not familiar with that, it's getting AI to do what you want it to do. And this is where this all comes from if you want to look more up about that. One more point I didn't make about the math that I want to make before I move on. I remember a day, and you guys probably do too if you're listening to this podcast. You're probably old enough to remember this. Teachers used to say, what, are you going to carry a calculator in your pocket? And this is the math teacher. You say, why? I could just use a calculator for this. And they're like, what, are you going to have one in your pocket all the time? And the answer was yes. Yes, I will have one in my pocket. I didn't see cell phones coming, but I saw a day when there'd be this all-in-one device. And that was kind of like what I was thinking. It was kind of the Steve Jobs vision of the future. And that's why I didn't put too much weight in memorizing all the stuff with math. This might have been short-sighted because I could have been completely wrong and really gotten one over on myself, but I really hated writing math down too. And I'm like, yeah, I think there will be a future where I do carry a calculator in my pocket, but all my teachers couldn't envision that future. And I thought that was short-sighted. That's kind of where I'm going with this is, there will be something in your pocket or somewhere on your person or maybe implanted in you. Not that I'm going to go with that route, but where we can interact with technology and it will be able to provide all these equations. We don't have to look it up and it'll just spit it out on the other end. So key concepts are more important to me than anything else. Moving on. I think we also need to prepare our kids for understanding science in the world. The role of science is providing a strong foundation for understanding the world, right? It's a process in which to understand the world by observing it and seeing if your predictions are right, and then we make conclusions about that. It's basically the scientific method, right? It helps kids think critically and encourages hands-on experimentation and exploration of the world, and I think that's a positive thing. Essential subjects are stuff like biology, physics, chemistry, that kind of stuff. And I say essential meaning if you want to prepare them for the future of work, these are things where I want to invest. I want to invest in. We're not totally there yet because my kids are pretty young. However, we are learning key concepts and laying the foundation in order to learn more about that. So, and the reason I think science is important is because a well-rounded individual with an understanding of all the different sciences, I think is going to be very beneficial because you understand what reality looks like. And we don't live in the silly land of making it all up. So some of the things I do to prepare my children for the future of work in relation to science is we get like science kits and we have them do that. They often want to do this on their own anyway, and then they learn about it, right? It comes with we get these things that explain what's going on. One of the cool things we've done recently is we get a magic science kit. You're doing magic using science, and I think that's pretty cool because kids are into magic. My kids are anyway. But it shows it demonstrates these basic principles of how the world works, right? We also use everyday activities to teach these scientific principles, whether it's cooking or if you're out in the garden, stuff like that. Talking, we go to science centers and we go to, I don't know what you call it. We have the metro parks and they have these like small little centers, can't remember what they're called, but like small little science centers. They teach stuff. It's usually local stuff, like we're in the Great Lakes region, and a lot of the ones we have are focused on the Great Lakes and forests that we live in. So that's kind of cool. And we go to museums and natural history museums, other educational places to inspire curiosity and learning. Also science camps and all that stuff focused on that. And that's some of the ways we help lay the foundation for understanding science in the world. Moving on, I think we'll end today's episode. I'm just going to kind of recap on some of the stuff to kind of solidify some things in this episode of being like core fundamentals. We want to get our kids to be adaptable, right? And not get our kids to be adaptable. It's such a poor way to phrase it. We want to help our kids adopt the philosophy that we need to be adaptable. That change is inevitable. You can't stay the same. Change is a good thing. Failure is okay. We want to help them understand key concepts of math and English, because I think those are going to be two really valuable things in the world. Science as well, science and the understanding of the world, meaning chemistry, physics, biology, all that stuff. And I think that the parent's role is to provide resources and exposure to help our kids dive in to whatever they're learning. We want to make it interesting, and that's what's going to help them prepare. We're going to be a model for doing that ourselves, because children learn best from a model. So that's why I'm doing it myself. I hope that today's episode at least gets you thinking. Again, I'm flying by the seat of my pants with this stuff, and this is the best I could put together. I apologize if I kind of talk in circles in this episode, because I feel like it's not 100% clear to me where the future is going. But I do know that these meta skills, these things like adaptability, creativity, all that stuff, these things are transferable into anything that they do. And having a firm understanding of the world is another one of those things. And that's what we went over in today's episode, at least partly. So with that, I'll end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.